Elena Vasquez stood at the viewport of the human diplomatic ship, watching the massive space station grow larger as they approached. Nexus Prime was enormous, bigger than any city on Earth. Ships from dozens of different alien races moved around it like insects around a bright light. Some looked like giant metal flowers, others like twisted metal bones, and a few that hurt to look at directly. "Remember," said Captain Torres quietly beside her, "we are primitive. We are weak. We know nothing about space travel or advanced technology." He touched the small device hidden behind his ear. "The recording equipment is working. Every word, every gesture, every piece of technology we see goes straight back to Earth." Elena nodded. She had practiced this role for 2 years. Act impressed by everything. Ask simple questions. Make the aliens think humans were like children who had just learned to walk among giants. It was not easy when she had 3 engineering degrees and had helped design faster-than-light engines that these aliens could not even imagine. The docking process was rough. The alien traffic control systems were outdated by human standards, but Elena made sure to gasp and point at the simple holographic displays as if they were magic. Captain Torres played his part too, fumbling with the basic communication devices and asking for help with procedures that any human pilot could do with their eyes closed. The airlock opened with a hiss. 3 aliens waited for them on the other side. The first was tall and thin with purple skin and 4 arms. Its species was called the Zephyrians, and they thought they were the smartest race in the galaxy. The second alien looked like a giant insect with golden armor. That was a Krillian warrior, from a species that loved war more than anything else. The third alien was harder to look at directly. It seemed to shift and change, sometimes solid, sometimes like smoke. The ethereals claimed they could read minds, though Elena's neural implants made sure they would only see what she wanted them to see. "Welcome, primitive ones," said the Zephyrian in a voice that sounded like metal scraping against stone. "I am Science Director Veltar. You will follow us to the council chamber. Do not touch anything. Do not speak unless spoken to. Your species is here because we allow it." Elena bowed deeply, as if honored by the alien's rudeness. Inside, she was recording everything. The way they moved, the technology in the walls, the power sources, the security systems. Every detail would help Earth prepare for what was coming. The walk through Nexus Prime was like a tour through a museum of failed civilizations. The humans had studied the history of every species here. They knew how the Zephyrians had destroyed their own planet through pollution. They knew how the Krillians had caused 3 galactic wars. They knew how the ethereals had enslaved dozens of worlds through mind control. All of these species thought they were advanced, but they had never learned the most important lesson. True power came from being underestimated. The council chamber was a massive circular room with representatives from hundreds of different alien species. Some floated in tanks of liquid. Others stood on platforms of different heights to accommodate their various sizes. A few were clearly machines, their original species long dead. At the center sat the High Council, 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "So," rumbled a voice like an earthquake, "these are the humans." The speaker was Overlord Krex, Supreme Commander of the Krillian Empire. He was twice the size of a normal Krillian, his armor covered in the symbols of 1,000 victories. "They look even weaker than our report suggested." Elena stepped forward, making sure to look nervous and small. "Great Overlord," she said in careful, simple words. "We are honored to stand before such mighty beings. We come seeking friendship and guidance from those far wiser than ourselves." Several council members laughed. It sounded like breaking glass and grinding metal. Elena felt Captain Torres tense beside her, but she kept her face humble and hopeful. "Friendship?" said another voice, this one like music made of ice. The speaker was Ethereal Prime Zixara, the most powerful psychic in known space. "What could primitives like you offer to us? You have barely learned to leave your single world. We have ruled the stars for millions of years." "We offer our service," Elena replied, bowing again. "We are willing to learn. We can work hard. We have many people who would be honored to help build your great civilization." The truth was that humans had been traveling between stars for longer than any of these species had existed. Earth was just one of thousands of human worlds, chosen specifically because it looked young and primitive. Every word Elena spoke was a lie, but it was a lie that would save both human and alien lives when the truth finally came out. High Counselor Thane, an ancient being that looked like a tree made of crystal, finally spoke. The humans will be granted territory in Sector 7G on the outer rim. 12 worlds, all of them barely suitable for life. You will mine resources for the Confederation. You will provide workers when needed. You will cause no trouble. We are grateful beyond words, Elena said, though she knew that Sector 7G was actually perfect for human needs. It was far from the major alien civilizations, close to several important hyperspace routes, and rich in the exact materials humans needed for their hidden projects. One warning, said Overlord Krex, pointing a clawed finger at the human delegation. If your species causes any problems, if you try to expand beyond your assigned territory, if you develop weapons or technology above your station, we will remove you from existence. We have done this to 47 species before you. You will not be the first primitives to overestimate their importance. Elena nodded eagerly as if grateful for the threat. We understand, Great Overlord. We will be no trouble at all. The Corellian laughed, a sound like rocks falling down a mountain. See that you remember those words, little human. The galaxy belongs to those strong enough to take it. Your species is not strong enough to take anything. As the human delegation was escorted out, Elena allowed herself one small smile. Overlord Krex was right about one thing. The galaxy did belong to those strong enough to take it. He was just wrong about which species that was. 3 months later, the first human colony ships arrived in Sector 7G. To any alien observers, they looked like simple transport vessels, barely capable of carrying a few thousand settlers. In reality, each ship carried advanced terraforming equipment, quantum manufacturing systems, and the first pieces of what would become the galaxy's most sophisticated defense network. The aliens had made their first mistake. They had given humans exactly what they wanted: time, space, and the perfect excuse to build in secret. Now Earth's children would spread across their new worlds, always appearing weak and grateful, always working hard for their alien masters. But beneath the surface, in hidden facilities and secret laboratories, the real work was beginning. The work that would one day make the galaxy fall silent in shock and awe. 3 years had passed since humanity's first meeting with the Galactic Confederation. In that time, 12 human colonies had been established in Sector 7G, each one appearing to struggle with the basic challenges of life on hostile worlds. To the alien observers who occasionally checked on them, the humans looked like they were barely surviving. Food shortages, equipment failures, and small accidents happened regularly enough to maintain the illusion of incompetence. The truth was very different. Below ground, vast facilities hummed with activity. Fusion reactors powered manufacturing plants that could build anything from starships to sandwich makers. Quantum computers processed information faster than the most advanced alien systems. And in the deepest bunkers, weapons were being created that would make the galaxy's military forces look like children playing with toys. Dr. Sarah Kim stood in one of these hidden facilities on New Geneva, watching the latest batch of defensive satellites roll off the production line. Each one was disguised to look like a communication relay or weather monitoring station. In reality, they carried enough firepower to crack a moon in half. The Corellians are moving again, said Commander Jackson, joining her at the observation window. Intelligence reports a fleet buildup near the Vega system. Looks like they're planning another expansion. Sarah nodded grimly. The Corellian Empire had been growing more aggressive lately. They had already conquered 6 independent worlds this year, enslaving the populations and strip mining the planets for resources. The Galactic Confederation said nothing as long as the Corellians shared a portion of their profits. Any word from Earth Command? Sarah asked. The same orders as always. Maintain the cover. Act helpless. Let them underestimate us until the time is right. Jackson's jaw tightened. It's getting harder to watch, Doctor. The news reports from the conquered worlds. The things they do to civilians. Sarah understood his frustration. Every human colony received the same reports. Entire families torn apart, children taken for experiments, adults worked to death in mines and factories. The Corellians treated other species like animals, and the rest of the galaxy either cheered them on or looked the other way. The alert came 2 days later. A massive Corellian fleet had jumped into the New Geneva system without warning. 30 warships, each one the size of a small city, bristling with weapons that could turn a planet's surface into glass. Behind them came transport ships full of soldiers and the equipment needed to establish a new slave colony. Governor Martinez called an emergency meeting in the colony's main building. The room was packed with colonists, all of them looking appropriately terrified. Many were actually terrified, but not for the reasons the Krillians would expect. They were afraid that someone might break character too early. "Citizens," Governor Martinez announced, his voice shaking just enough to sound genuine, "we have received a communication from the Krillian fleet. They claim this system now belongs to their empire. They are demanding our immediate surrender." The crowd erupted in panicked shouts. A few people fell to their knees crying. Others demanded to know how this could happen, why the Confederation wasn't protecting them. It was a perfect performance of a primitive colony facing an overwhelming threat. Admiral Vex Korath's face appeared on the main screen, his scarred features twisted in a cruel smile. His translator made his voice sound like grinding stone. "Humans of New Geneva, you will surrender immediately. Your adults will work in our mines until they die. Your children will come with us for biological research. Your world will provide resources for the Empire. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your colony." Governor Martinez stepped forward, making his voice sound small and defeated. "Great Admiral, please. We are just simple farmers and miners. We have nothing of value. Perhaps you could take some volunteers instead of everyone." The Krillian's laugh was like the sound of bones breaking. "You misunderstand, Primitive. We are not negotiating. We are informing you of your fate. You have one of your hours to begin loading onto our transport ships. After that, we will begin bombing your settlements." The transmission ended. Governor Martinez turned back to the crowd, letting his shoulders sag in apparent defeat. "I'm sorry, everyone. We have no choice. We must prepare for evacuation." But even as he spoke, hidden signals were already racing through the colony's concealed communication network. Deep underground automated systems came online. Defense satellites that had been drifting silent in space for 3 years suddenly activated. And on a dozen other human worlds, Captain Marcus Chen received the message he had been waiting for. "Red Dawn Protocol is active," came the encrypted transmission. "New Geneva under Krillian attack. All pretense to be maintained until final moment. You are authorized to respond with full force once civilians are clear." Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Determination, one of 12 ships that made up the New Geneva Defense Fleet. To any alien sensors, they looked like modified cargo haulers with a few light weapons bolted on. The Krillians wouldn't even bother scanning them carefully. After all, what threat could primitive human ships pose to the mighty Krillian Imperial Navy? The loading process began exactly as Admiral Vex Korath had ordered. Human colonists filed onto transport ships looking defeated and terrified. The Krillian soldiers enjoyed their fear, pushing and shoving the humans, separating families, pointing their weapons at anyone who moved too slowly. What the Krillians didn't notice was that every single human colonist carried a small device hidden in their clothing. Some were recording everything for later evidence. Others were advanced sensors, mapping the inside of every Krillian ship. A few were much more dangerous, but those would only activate when needed. Captain Chen watched the loading process from his ship's bridge, his hands clenched into fists. Around him, his crew maintained their roles as nervous cargo hauler pilots, but he could see the anger in their eyes. Every one of them had trained for this moment. Every one of them knew that the time for hiding was almost over. The last group of colonists was being loaded when Admiral Vex Korath made his fatal mistake. A human child, maybe 7 years old, dropped a small toy as she was being pushed onto a transport ship. When she tried to retrieve it, a Krillian soldier kicked her hard enough to break several ribs. The child's scream echoed across the communication channels. In hidden bunkers around the colony, human operators looked to their commanding officers. On the bridge of the Determination, Captain Chen's communications officer raised an eyebrow in question. Chen took a deep breath. The moment had finally come. "All civilians are aboard Krillian ships," he said quietly. "Teleportation systems are locked onto their positions. Are all units ready?" Confirmations came back from across the system. Hidden defense platforms reported ready, stealth ships decloaked at the edge of the system. Most importantly, the civilian evacuation systems came online, using technology the Krillians had never seen before. "Execute Operation Shepherd," Chen ordered. Across the Krillian fleet, something impossible happened. Every human civilian, all 40,000 of them, simply vanished. Not teleported in the crude way aliens understood the technology, but quantum shifted into protected dimensional pockets where they would be completely safe. Admiral Vex Korath stared at his empty transport ships in shock. "What? How did they—" "Admiral," came Captain Chen's voice over the communication system. But it no longer sounded nervous or defeated. You made a mistake. You hurt a child. The Krillian fleet opened fire, their weapons aimed at the small human ships. The energy beams that could melt through starship armor struck the Determination and simply disappeared, absorbed by defensive systems that bent the laws of physics. Impossible, Admiral Vex Korath snarled. No primitive species could have technology like this? You're right, Chen replied as his ships began to move in patterns that no Krillian pilot could follow. Good thing we're not primitive. The battle lasted exactly 14 minutes and 37 seconds. When it was over, 30 Krillian warships had been reduced to their component atoms. Not destroyed, not damaged, but carefully disassembled and stored for later analysis. The crews found themselves in comfortable holding cells that shouldn't have been able to exist inside ships so small. Admiral Vex Korath sat in his cell, staring at walls that seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions, despite being clearly only a few meters wide. A human officer entered, her uniform bearing no rank or insignia he recognized. Admiral, she said politely, my name is Dr. Sarah Kim. I want you to understand something. Today you attacked a human colony. You threatened our children. You expected us to be helpless. She paused, letting her words sink in. That was your second mistake. Your first was assuming we were primitive just because we wanted you to think so. The Krillian warrior tried to speak, but found his voice wouldn't work. Some kind of technology was suppressing his ability to make sound. The galaxy is about to change, Admiral, Dr. Kim continued. Your empire and every other major power is about to learn what humans are really capable of. I suggest you think carefully about whether you want to be part of that future, or just a footnote in its history. As news of the New Geneva incident spread across the galaxy, alien intelligence agencies worked frantically to understand what had happened. 30 Krillian warships didn't just... The news of what happened at New Geneva spread through the galaxy like wildfire. 30 Krillian warships destroyed by primitive human cargo haulers. An entire population vanished and rescued by technology that shouldn't exist. Admiral Vex Korath and his entire fleet captured without a single human casualty. In the crystal spires of the Zephyrian homeworld, Science Director Veltar stared at the sensor readings for the 100th time. The data made no sense. Energy signatures that violated known physics. Matter displacement on a scale that required power sources bigger than stars. And somehow the humans had hidden all of this technology for 3 years. Impossible, he muttered, his forearms working frantically at different control panels. Their ships had the energy output of primitive fusion reactors. Our scans were thorough. There was nothing there. His assistant, a younger Zephyrian named Kyldos, looked up from his own workstation. Sir, what if the scans were wrong? What if they were somehow hiding their true capabilities? Veltar's purple skin darkened with anger. Are you suggesting that my scientific instruments, perfected over 10,000 years of research, could be fooled by a species that just learned to build spaceships? But even as he said the words, doubt crept into his mind. The Zephyrians prided themselves on being the most advanced scientific civilization in the galaxy. Their sensors could detect a single atom at the edge of a solar system. Their analysis equipment could break down any technology and understand its function within hours. Yet somehow they had completely missed what the humans were really capable of. Prepare a stealth reconnaissance mission, Veltar ordered. I want our best intelligence operatives inserted into human space. Find out what they're really hiding. 3 weeks later, Agent Zixanal materialized in the shadows of a human mining facility on the world called New Horizon. Zephyrian stealth technology was the best in the galaxy. Their agents could become invisible to almost any detection system, could hack into any computer network, could analyze any piece of technology just by touching it. The mining facility looked exactly like what the humans claimed it was. Simple extraction equipment, basic processing plants, storage facilities for raw materials. Workers moved around in predictable patterns, operating machinery that was crude but functional. Everything matched the intelligence reports perfectly. But Zixanal had been trained to look beyond the obvious. He noticed that the workers moved with military precision despite their casual behavior. Their equipment, while looking primitive, showed signs of manufacturing quality that exceeded even Zephyrian standards. And there were small details everywhere that didn't quite fit the story of a struggling colony. He decided to investigate the main computer system. Zephyrian hacking technology could break into any network within minutes. But when Zixnal connected his equipment to what looked like a simple mining computer, something went wrong. Instead of breaking into the system broke into him. "Warning," said a calm female voice in perfect Zephyrian. "Unauthorized intrusion detected. Agent identity confirmed as Zixnal, Zephyrian Intelligence Service, serial number 7749 Alpha. Please stand by for processing." Zixnal tried to run, but found himself frozen in place. Not by any weapon or restraint field, but by his own body refusing to obey his commands. A human woman walked into the room, her expression calm and friendly. "Hello, Agent Zixnal," she said in fluent Zephyrian. "My name is Dr. Keiko Tanaka. I've been expecting you." "Impossible," Zixnal managed to say through his paralyzed vocal cords. "Your species doesn't have technology that can override Zephyrian neural systems." Dr. Tanaka smiled. "You're absolutely right. We don't have technology that can do that. We have technology that can do much more interesting things." She gestured, and a chair moved across the room by itself, positioning itself behind the frozen agent. "Please sit. We have a lot to discuss." As Zixnal found himself sitting whether he wanted to or not, Dr. Tanaka activated a holographic display. Images began appearing in the air between them. Starships that were clearly human in design, but larger and more advanced than anything in the intelligence files. Weapons that bent space and time. Facilities that extended deep into planetary cores. "These are the real human colonies," Dr. Tanaka explained casually. "The ones you've been looking at are just the surface level. Window dressing, you might say. We learned a long time ago that most species judge capability by what they can see on the surface." More images appeared. Cities buried beneath ocean floors. Manufacturing plants inside asteroid belts. And ships. Thousands and thousands of ships, each one radiating power signatures that dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. "But this is impossible," Zixnal whispered. "We monitored your species when you first achieved spaceflight. You were primitive. Your technology was barely functional. You monitored one world," Dr. Tanaka corrected gently. "Earth. A nice little planet that we've been using as a cultural laboratory for the past few centuries. We wanted to understand how young civilizations develop, how they make contact with others, how they react to being seen as inferior." She waved her hand, and the images changed to show vast networks of planets, hundreds of star systems, populations in the trillions. "This is actual human space. We've been exploring the galaxy for about as long as your species has existed. Earth was never our homeworld. It was just one of many research projects." Agent Zixnal felt his mind struggling to process this information. The Galactic Confederation. They know nothing of this? "They know exactly what we want them to know," Dr. Tanaka replied, "which until now has been almost nothing. But recent events have forced us to accelerate our timeline." "Recent events?" Dr. Tanaka's expression hardened slightly. "The Krillians attacked one of our research colonies. They threatened our civilian population. They hurt a child." She paused, letting that sink in. "That was unacceptable." More images appeared. Video recordings from the New Geneva incident, but from angles that no official camera had captured. The battle was shown in detail, revealing the true extent of human weapons technology. Energy beams that could disassemble matter at the quantum level. Defensive systems that created localized space-time distortions. Teleportation technology that could move entire populations across light years in seconds. "Your mission," Dr. Tanaka continued, "was to discover our secrets. Consider it successful. You now know more about human capabilities than any other alien in the galaxy." "Why?" Zixnal asked. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because your people are going to have a choice to make very soon. The old order is ending. The Galactic Confederation, with its pyramid of species ranked by perceived strength, is about to become obsolete. We're offering something different." She gestured again, and the images changed to show peaceful scenes. Humans and aliens working together on massive construction projects, children of different species playing together in parks that spanned entire continents, research facilities where the greatest minds of a dozen civilizations collaborated on projects that could reshape reality itself. "This is what we're building," Dr. Tanaka said. "A true confederation, based on cooperation instead of domination. A galaxy where species are valued for their contributions, not their military power or technological advancement. And if species refuse to join this new order," Dr. Tanaka's smile was gentle, but her eyes were as cold as space. Then they'll be quarantined to their home systems until they're ready to participate peacefully. We have a great deal of experience with managing developing civilizations. Agent Zixanal felt a chill run through his entire body. You've done this before, many times, in many galaxies. The universe is very large, Agent Zixanal, and consciousness is very rare. We've made it our responsibility to nurture it wherever it appears, and to prevent it from destroying itself through war and competition. She stood up and Zixanal found that he could move again. You're free to go. Return to your superiors. Tell them everything you've learned. They'll probably think you're lying or insane, but eventually they'll investigate further. When they do, they'll find exactly as much truth as we want them to find. What about the other major powers? The Krillians, the Ethereals? The Krillians are already in our custody. Their empire is being dismantled as we speak, though they don't know it yet. As for the Ethereals, Dr. Tanaka paused, looking thoughtful. They're about to have a very interesting experience. On the other side of the galaxy, Ethereal Prime Zixara floated in her meditation chamber, preparing to probe the minds of the human diplomatic team that had just arrived at ethereal space. The Ethereals were the galaxy's most powerful psychics, capable of reading thoughts across light years, of implanting commands that could control entire populations. She reached out with her mind, expecting to encounter the simple thoughts of primitive beings. Instead, she found herself looking into an abyss that looked back. The human minds were not unprotected. They were fortresses. Quantum encryption surrounded every thought. Cybernetic enhancements created layers of security that adapted and evolved in real time. And beneath it all, she sensed something vast and ancient and utterly alien. "Hello, Zixara," said a voice inside her own mind. The emergency session of the Hegemony Council was called at dawn on Nexus Prime. Representatives from every major power in the galaxy filled the massive chamber, their voices creating a chaos of sound as they argued and demanded answers. For the first time in the Council's 1,000-year history, fear was visible on every face. High Counselor Thane's crystal form flickered with agitated energy as he called for order. "The evidence is undeniable," his voice rang across the chamber. "The humans have been deceiving us from the moment of first contact. Their true capabilities far exceed anything we previously believed possible." Science Director Veltar stood to address the assembly, his purple skin pale with exhaustion. He had not slept in 3 days, desperately trying to understand the intelligence reports. The reconnaissance data shows technology that violates our understanding of physics. Ships that can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, weapons that can disassemble matter at the quantum level, manufacturing capabilities that exceed our entire galactic industrial output. Overlord Krextar, the new Supreme Commander of the Krillian Empire after Admiral Vexkorath's capture, slammed his armored fist on his speaking platform. "Enough talk. We are the Krillian Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. No primitive species can threaten us." "Your predecessor said the same thing," noted Ethereal Prime Zixara, her mental voice carrying undertones of genuine terror. "His entire fleet was destroyed without firing a single effective shot. And when I attempted to probe human minds, I found defenses that turned my own psychic abilities against me." The chamber erupted in more arguments, but High Counselor Thane raised his hand for silence. "The question before us is simple. Do we attempt to negotiate with this human threat, or do we eliminate it before it can grow stronger? Negotiate with primitives?" Overlord Krextar roared. "Never. The Krillian Empire bows to no one." "Then you propose war?" asked Zixara. "I propose we show these humans what real power looks like," the Krillian commander replied. "Mobilize every fleet, every soldier, every weapon. We will burn their colonies to ash and scatter their atoms across the void." Veltar's 4 arms gestured frantically. "Did you not hear what I just said? Their technology is beyond our comprehension. A direct military assault would be suicide." "The Zephyrian speaks wisdom," agreed Ambassador Hexlar of the Aquatic Assembly. "Perhaps we should consider opening diplomatic channels." But Overlord Krextar was not alone in his desire for war. Representatives from dozens of species voiced their agreement. The humans had made them look like fools. They had shattered the carefully maintained balance of power that had kept the galaxy stable for millennia. Such a threat could not be allowed to exist. "Very well," High Counselor Thane declared after hours of heated debate. "By majority vote, the Hegemony Council authorizes the formation of the largest military force in galactic history. Every member species will contribute ships, soldiers, and resources. We will end the human threat once and for all. The mobilization took 6 months. 50 species contributed to the greatest armada ever assembled. 10,000 capital ships, each one the size of a small city. 1 million support vessels carrying troops, supplies, and siege equipment. Ground forces numbering in the billions, equipped with weapons that could crack continents. The combined industrial might of the entire galaxy had been focused on a single goal: the complete destruction of humanity. Admiral Krexistal, Overlord Krexitar's own son, was given command of the armada. He stood on the bridge of the flagship Galactic Dominion, watching through the viewports as ships from 100 different species formed into attack formations. Crystalline Zephyrian vessels that gleamed like jewels, organic hive ships that pulsed with their own heartbeats, ancient ethereal craft that seemed to exist partially in other dimensions, the pride and power of galactic civilization, all focused on eliminating 12 primitive human colonies. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "all fleets report ready for hyperspace jump. Target system Centauri. Intelligence indicates this is where the humans have concentrated their defensive forces." Admiral Krextal nodded grimly. "Send the message to all ships. Today we restore the natural order. Today we show the galaxy that power still matters. Begin the assault." The hyperspace jump was flawless. 10,000 ships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, weapons charged, shields raised. They had expected to find a desperate human defense fleet, perhaps a few hundred ships at most, hiding behind whatever primitive fortifications they had managed to build. Instead, they found a single vessel. The UES Defiance hung alone in the void, a sleek ship barely a kilometer long. Compared to the massive alien warships surrounding it, it looked like a minnow swimming among whales. Its design was elegant but simple, with none of the elaborate decorations or intimidating architecture that marked the ships of the great powers. "Is this some kind of joke?" Admiral Krextal demanded. "Where is their fleet?" "Sir," his sensor operator replied, confusion clear in his voice. "I'm only detecting one ship. The Defiance. It's just sitting there. Scan it. Find out what kind of weapons it carries." "Sir, the scans are unusual. I'm reading power levels that don't make sense. The ship's mass seems to be fluctuating, and there are energy signatures I've never seen before." Before Admiral Krextal could respond, a communication request came through from the human vessel. A woman's face appeared on the main screen, her expression calm and professional. She wore a simple uniform with no elaborate decorations, just 5 stars on her collar. "I am Admiral Sarah Cross of the United Earth Systems Defense Force," she said, in perfect galactic standard. "You have brought weapons into human space with hostile intent. This constitutes an act of war." Admiral Krextal laughed, the sound echoing through his bridge. "Act of war? We have 10,000 warships. You have one. Surrender now and we might allow some of your species to live as slaves." Admiral Cross smiled slightly. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding. You seem to think this is a battle between your fleet and our fleet. It's not." "Then what is it?" Krextal demanded. "It's a demonstration." Admiral Cross touched a control on her chair. "Computer, show them what else we've been hiding." Space around the Centauri system suddenly came alive. What had appeared to be empty vacuum began to shimmer and shift. Massive structures materialized as their cloaking fields deactivated. Defense platforms the size of moons. Weapon arrays that stretched across entire asteroid belts. And ships. Not hundreds of ships, but millions of them. Emerging from dimensional pockets where they had been waiting. The alien fleet found itself surrounded by a force so vast that their sensors couldn't even count all the vessels. Each human ship radiated power levels that exceeded their largest dreadnoughts. Weapons that bent space-time itself targeted every alien vessel simultaneously. "Impossible," Admiral Krextal whispered, staring at the tactical display that showed his fleet as tiny dots surrounded by an ocean of red hostile contacts. "Actually," Admiral Cross replied calmly, "it's just technology. You've been operating under the assumption that you represent the peak of galactic civilization. That assumption was incorrect." Overlord Krextar's voice came over the fleet communication channels, transmitted from his flagship at the rear of the formation. "All ships. Attack pattern Omega. Destroy everything. Show them the might of the Krillian Empire." The galactic fleet opened fire. Energy beams that could melt planets. Missiles that could crack moons, particle weapons that could disintegrate matter at the atomic level. The combined firepower of 50 civilizations struck the human defense network. Nothing happened. The human shields didn't just absorb the energy, they seemed to drink it, converting the hostile fire into power for their own systems. Weapons that should have destroyed cities struck barrier fields and simply vanished. "Your turn," Admiral Cross said quietly. The human response was not violent. It was surgical. Across the galactic fleet, ships simply stopped working. Not destroyed, not damaged, but carefully disabled. Weapon systems shut down. Life support switched to backup power. Communication arrays went offline. In the space of 30 seconds, the greatest military force in galactic history became completely helpless. "What did you do to us?" Admiral Krextel demanded, his voice shaking. "We turned off your toys," Admiral Cross replied. "Your weapons, your shields, your engines. Don't worry, life support is still functioning. We're not monsters." Transport beams began activating across the alien fleet, not the crude teleportation technology that most species used, but quantum displacement systems that could move entire crews without them even feeling it. In moments, every alien soldier, every ship captain, every admiral found themselves in comfortable holding facilities. Admiral Krextal materialized in a room that seemed impossibly large, despite being clearly aboard a ship. The walls showed peaceful scenes from hundreds of different worlds. A human officer was waiting for him, her expression sad but determined. "Admiral," she said, "my name is Commander Lisa Chen. I need you to understand something very important. This was not a battle. This was not even a test of our military capabilities. This was us being polite." "Polite?" Krextal snarled. "You have destroyed the greatest fleet in galactic history." "We disabled it," Commander Chen corrected. "Every ship, every system, everywhere." The broadcast began at exactly noon Galactic Standard Time. Every communication device in known space activated simultaneously. Holographic displays lit up in government buildings, shopping centers, homes, and ships. Even the most primitive radio receivers began transmitting the signal. For the first time in galactic history, every intelligent being in the galaxy was watching the same thing at the same time. Admiral Sarah Cross appeared in the center of the transmission, standing in what looked like a simple command center. Behind her, through large windows, Earth could be seen rotating slowly in the void. But this was not the Earth that alien intelligence services had been monitoring. This was a world covered in cities that stretched from ocean to ocean, with massive orbital rings that sparkled with the light of billions of inhabitants. "Citizens of the galaxy," Admiral Cross began, her voice calm and clear. "My name is Admiral Sarah Cross of the United Earth Systems Defense Force. I am speaking to you from the Sol system, which you know as the location of humanity's homeworld. What you do not know is that Earth has never been our homeworld. It has been our laboratory." The image behind her changed, showing vast star charts that stretched across multiple galactic arms. Thousands of systems were marked in blue, indicating human presence. The scale was staggering. What the galaxy had believed to be the entirety of human space was revealed to be less than 1% of their actual territory. For the past several centuries, we have been conducting an experiment. We wanted to understand how intelligent species develop, how they form governments, how they interact with others they perceive as different or inferior. Earth was established as a research station where we could observe these processes in controlled conditions. Admiral Cross paused, letting the implications sink in across 1,000 worlds. "The human colonists you have interacted with were volunteers who agreed to play roles in this experiment. They pretended to be primitive, to be struggling, to be in need of guidance from more advanced civilizations. Their performance was flawless because they were, in fact, among our most skilled researchers and intelligence operatives." The image changed again, showing the construction of the colonies in Sector 7G. What had appeared to be desperate settlers building basic shelters was revealed to be the careful assembly of advanced research facilities. Every human colonist was shown using technology that made the galaxy's most advanced systems look like stone tools. The Galactic Confederation, the Hegemony Council, the entire structure of galactic civilization that you have known for millennia, has been operating under our observation and, when necessary, our guidance. We have prevented 17 galactic wars, stopped 43 attempts at genocide, and quietly removed 32 species that posed existential threats to galactic civilization. On Nexus Prime, High Counselor Thane watched the broadcast from his emergency bunker, his crystal form flickering with shock and disbelief. Around him, the surviving members of the Hegemony Council sat in stunned silence. Everything they had built, everything they had achieved, had been allowed to exist only because humanity had decided not to interfere. But why? Whispered Science Director Veltar, his forearms trembling. Why hide? Why pretend to be inferior? Admiral Cross continued as if she had heard his question. You may be wondering why we chose to conceal our true nature. The answer is simple. Most species react poorly to the discovery that they are not the dominant force in their region of space. History has shown us that when young civilizations encounter truly advanced societies, they tend to become either completely dependent or violently rebellious. Neither outcome promotes healthy development. The broadcast showed historical examples from dozens of different galaxies, species that had collapsed into worship when they encountered human technology, others that had destroyed themselves trying to fight wars they could never win, and a few that had transcended their limitations and joined the greater galactic community as equals. Today, that experiment ends. Recent events have forced us to reveal our true capabilities. The attack on New Geneva, the formation of the so-called Grand Armada, the continued oppression of weaker species by those who mistake military power for actual strength. All of these have demonstrated that this galaxy is ready for the next phase of its development. The image behind Admiral Cross changed to show the captured alien fleets. Thousands of ships floating peacefully in space, their crews safe and unharmed, their weapons disabled but not destroyed. It was a demonstration of power so complete, so overwhelming that resistance was clearly futile. The Galactic Confederation is hereby dissolved. The Hegemony Council's authority is revoked. The system of species rankings based on military power and technological advancement is ended. In their place, we offer something better. New images appeared showing vast construction projects that spanned entire star systems, cities built inside artificial suns, worlds reshaped to support dozens of different forms of life simultaneously, research stations where beings from hundreds of species worked together on projects that could reshape reality itself. This is the Greater Galactic Cooperative, a true confederation based on the principle that all intelligent life has value. Every species will be invited to participate according to their abilities and interests. Scientific advancement, artistic achievement, philosophical insight, and cultural development will be valued equally. Military power will become irrelevant because military conflicts will no longer be permitted. On the Krillian homeworld, Overlord Krextar watched from his palace as his people gathered in the streets. The mighty Krillian Empire, built on conquest and domination, had been revealed as nothing more than a regional police force that had been allowed to exist only because it kept smaller threats from becoming larger ones. What of those who refused to join this new order? He asked his advisors, though he already knew the answer. Admiral Cross answered as if she could hear him. Species that choose not to participate in the cooperative will be confined to their home systems until they are ready to interact peacefully with others. This is not punishment but protection. We have learned that forced integration leads to resentment and rebellion. When species are ready to embrace cooperation over competition, they will be welcomed. The broadcast continued for another hour, detailing the transition process. The Krillian Empire would be dismantled, its military forces disbanded, its enslaved populations freed and relocated to suitable worlds. The Zephyrian scientific establishment would be integrated into human research networks, where their talents could be applied to beneficial projects rather than weapons development. The ethereal psychic networks would be rebuilt to facilitate communication rather than control. To those who are afraid of this change, Admiral Cross concluded, understand that we have been managing galactic affairs for longer than most of your species have existed. The only difference now is that we are no longer hiding. To those who are angry about being deceived, know that this deception was necessary for your own development. And to those who welcome this new beginning, we look forward to working with you as partners in building a better galaxy. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. On a million worlds, in billions of homes and workplaces, intelligent beings sat quietly trying to process what they had just learned. The universe had suddenly become much larger and much more complex than anyone had imagined. Dr. Keiko Tanaka stood in her laboratory on New Geneva, now revealed to be one of humanity's most advanced research facilities. Around her, Alien scientists who had been studying human technology for months were staring at displays that showed the true extent of human capabilities. Weapons that could restructure matter at the quantum level, drives that could move ships between dimensions, manufacturing systems that could build entire planets in a matter of days. The question now, she said to her mixed human and alien research team, is what we do with all of this knowledge. We have the power to reshape the galaxy, but that doesn't mean we should use it carelessly. Agent Zixanol of Zephyrian Intelligence, who had become one of her most valued collaborators, raised a tentative hand. Dr. Tanaka, what will happen to species like mine? We defined ourselves by our technological superiority. If that was an illusion, what are we now? Dr. Tanaka smiled warmly. You are scientists, engineers, and explorers. You are beings capable of understanding the universe in ways that many species cannot. That has value beyond any military application. In the cooperative, you will have access to research opportunities that your species has never dreamed of. She gestured to the displays around them, showing projects that spanned multiple galaxies. We are working on technologies that could allow consciousness to exist independently of biological forms. Experiments in creating artificial universes. Research into the fundamental nature of reality itself. These projects require the best minds from every species. Your people's analytical abilities make them perfect partners for this work. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.